Today we have a tale that's not strictly history, but not completely folklore either. John Hendrix was born in Anderson County, Tennessee in 1865. In his 20s, John married Julia Griffith, and the couple settled down to life on a farm in the Bear Creek Valley of Anderson County. He and Julia had 4 children, and life was pretty good until 1900. That year, John and Julia's little 2-year-old daughter Ethel came down with diphtheria and passed away. This tragic loss was more than Julia could stand. She became angry at her husband, blaming him for Ethel's death. You see, just before she became sick, John had whipped her for misbehaving, and Julia became convinced that it was that whipping that caused their little girl to get sick. The anger and resentment she held for her husband grew until she decided to leave him. She took the other 3 children and moved to Arkansas, divorced John, and remarried. John was distraught over the loss of his wife and children, and he soon looked to religion and then mysticism to soothe his pain. He started going off into the woods alone to pray. One day, while he was out on one of his walks, a clear, loud voice suddenly spoke to him, commanding him to stay in the woods for 40 days and 40 nights. Well, John did as he was told, taking off deep into the mountains where he slept on the ground and prayed to God for guidance and, hopefully, some divine revelations about what he was to do with himself and the rest of his life. John got more than he bargained for. He did indeed have visions while on his retreat in the woods, and he shared them with the folks in the community. And this, as you can imagine, caused quite a stir with his neighbors and, more importantly, with the authorities, who had John declared insane and ordered sent to the local poor farm. John decided the poor farm was not for him, and so he escaped. He also made a prediction based on one of the visions he'd had in the wilderness. The poor farm was going to be burned to the ground by God before the next month arrived. And, believe it or not, a few weeks later, the building was struck by lightning and burned to the ground, just as John said it would. After that, most people just ignored John and his rantings about God's revelations to him. John Hendrix remarried in 1908 and had a son. He contracted tuberculosis and died on June 2nd, 1915, at the age of 49. There's one more prediction he made, though, that decades later brought folks around to the idea that maybe God was giving him visions of the future. During that 40-day period he spent in the woods in 1900, he had a vision of the far future of his little valley.
I tell you, Bear Creek Valley someday will be filled with great buildings and factories, and they will help toward winning the greatest war that will ever be. And there will be a city on Black Oak Ridge, and the center of authority will be on a spot middle way between Severe's Tadlock Farm and Joe Pyatt's place. They'll be building things, and there will be a great noise and confusion, and the earth will shake. I've seen it, and it's a-coming.
In that part of the county now sits the city of Oak Ridge, one of the sites used in the Manhattan Project during World War II, and whose atomic bombs helped end that war in 1945. And folks, that's the story of John Hendrix, the Prophet of Oak Ridge, another bit of the folklore and history from this place we call home, Appalachia. Be sure to click that subscribe button down below, and if you don't mind, give us a big thumbs up too. Thanks for watching.